Hello everyone. My name is Sawyer. I'm 28 years old now, and I want to tell you about an incident that happened years ago. While I was living with my family, an event that completely changed my life. At the time, I was 20. We lived in a small town called Red Hollow. It was in the mountainous region of North Carolina, a place hard to find on a map and almost completely cut off from the outside world. Everyone knew everyone. We knew who left their house, when and why. There were 5 of us at home. My father, Michael, my mother, Laura, and my older brothers, Evan and Cole. We were an ordinary family. Our life was quiet and uneventful. There was one person in town who lived alone. His name was Daniel. Daniel never spoke to anyone. No one had ever seen him get into a fight, but he never greeted anyone either. He avoided eye contact when he passed people. The only thing anyone knew about him was that he lived with his elderly, sick mother, Margaret. Margaret used to be a very kind, friendly woman. But for the past year, she hadn't left the house. Neighbors would leave food at her door, sometimes knock, but most of the time no one answered. When the door did open, Daniel would briefly say, "There's no need," and shut it again. One evening, while we were sitting in the town's small cafe, we noticed Daniel watching us from a distance. My brother Evan waved and called him over. Daniel hesitated, but eventually came. He pulled the chair slightly away from the table before sitting down. His hands were shaking. We asked about his mother. "She's fine," he said. He didn't say anything else. A few days later, my mother urgently called me to her side. Daniel's mother had come to our house. Margaret could barely walk. She was almost unable to stand. We brought her inside and sat her down. She started crying. She told us that her son was bringing black bags into the house at night. The bags smelled unbearable. He was piling them up in a locked room. She said there were sounds coming from that room at night, and that sometimes, while lying in bed, she felt something pulling her legs. My mother tried to calm her down. "You're having bad dreams," she said. "The boys will talk to Daniel." Margaret looked straight into our eyes and said, "This house is no longer my house." That night, my brother Cole and I walked her home. As we approached the house, Daniel appeared in the doorway. His face tightened when he saw us. He grabbed his mother by the arm and tried to rush her inside. My brother intervened. Daniel got angry. Evan grabbed Daniel by the arm and pulled him toward himself. "Don't ever hurt this woman," he said harshly, "or it will end badly." Daniel jerked his arm away. "Stay out of my business," he said. At that moment, the smell coming from inside the house hit my nose. I had never smelled anything like it in my life. A few days later, my mother disappeared. She had left the house in the morning and never came back. Her phone was off. No one had seen her. We went door to door, asking every neighbor if they had seen her. That evening, we went to Daniel's house. We knocked, no answer. We heard noises inside and called out. Eventually, he opened the door. We asked about my mother, said she might have come to visit Margaret. He said she had never been there. As he was quickly closing the door, my mother's voice came from inside the house. He slammed the door in our faces. Because it felt unreal, like a hallucination, we tried not to panic. We called the police and went home to wait. That night, when we returned, my mother walked in through the door. She was covered in mud. She didn't explain anything. She just said, "My head hurts," and went to her room. But my mother was no longer acting like my mother. At night, she would wake up and wander through the house. Sometimes she would stand in the living room, staring into nothing. One night, my brothers and I ran to the living room after hearing loud noises. The house was a mess, but neither my mother nor my father had woken up. I was terrified. I insisted on staying with my brothers. That night, we slept together. Toward morning, I felt things moving around in the house. I resisted opening my eyes with all my strength. When we woke up, the house was completely destroyed. My mother and father were gone. That same smell was in the beds. We stared at each other in shock. My brothers tried to reassure each other that there had to be a logical explanation. Then my mother and father walked in through the door. There was a strange silence between them. For a few days after that, everything seemed normal. But at night, the sounds and the movement of objects continued. That horrible, rotten smell would suddenly spread through the house. One night, while sitting in the living room, I asked my mother what was going on. I said everyone was acting strange, that there were weird sounds in the house, and that everyone kept staring at me blankly. My brother's face twisted into something unnatural. With a horrifying, almost demonic expression, he said, "You're imagining things." The television suddenly went black. The lights went out. The house was swallowed by a darkness darker than night itself. I called out to everyone, but no one answered. It was as if all their voices had been cut off at once. My parents weren't beside me. Then I heard my own voice coming from my room. I opened the door. Something that looked like me but with a distorted face was lying in my bed. My brother came up behind me. He was smiling. I closed my eyes and threw myself against the wall. When I opened them again, I found myself inside a coffin. I had been buried alive. Insects were crawling over me. I was screaming, but no one could hear me. I must have passed out from fear. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. A friend came and told me the truth. Our house had burned down. My mother, father, and brothers had died inside. There were strange marks on their bodies. Ritual symbols had been found in the house. I was the only one who survived. Days later, after being discharged from the hospital, I went to Daniel's house. The door was slightly open. I called out and went inside. I heard a strange moaning sound. When I followed it, I found his mother lying in bed, dying. That smell hit me again like a slap in the face. It was coming from the next room. When I went in, I saw severed animal heads, old papers covered in strange symbols and writings, jars filled with blood. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. Daniel appeared. I demanded to know what all of this was and why he was there. I grabbed a knife from a nearby shelf and walked toward him. He tried to distract me, saying his mother had done everything, that he was innocent. Then he suddenly reached for another knife. We struggled. I was stabbed. Neighbors came running after hearing the noise and subdued Daniel. The police arrived shortly after, and Daniel was arrested. His mother confessed everything. She said her son had been in love with Laura years ago, that she had envied Laura's orderly life and children, and believed her son would be happy with her if that family fell apart. She admitted she had been involved with something dark, believing that if Laura's family was destroyed, her son would be happy. But she said it had backfired and destroyed everyone. Daniel was released a few days later due to lack of evidence. Shortly after, he took his belongings and disappeared. The houses were sealed. I moved away from the town. But even now, at night, I still hear someone whisper my name, and sometimes, when I wake up, I feel something pulling at my legs. Thank you for listening to this story until the very end. If this video affected you, don't forget to support the channel by liking it. For more dark and realistic stories like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next story.